Thanks a lot for joining us and welcome back. Hey, it's good to see you again. This is part 2. Okay, welcome back. We appreciate it. We told you we were bringing part 2. And just to refresh everybody's memory, just to recap, just to summarize real quick here. Part 1, we met with actually Michael Lampton down at the SBA, okay, the SBA Disaster Assistance Program. And that was a phenomenal, I mean, the information was so great to where we had to break it up into 2 parts.
Yes, we met with Michael Lampton, who is the Public Affairs Director of the Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance. And, you know, we talked about various programs that is available through the Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance. And it was a wealth of information. We had to go ahead and cut it in 2, and this is the second half.
Absolutely, absolutely. So without further ado, I think we should just go ahead and let our audience and let them view the second half. What do you think?
Shall we?
We shall. Okay, here it comes. It's coming right at you.
With that in mind, we recognize the income stream and the consistency of the income stream, so that allows us to be able to make them that loan.
Okay. Michael, what about startup businesses that they were in the process of a construction loan, okay, or they were in the process of moving into that particular businesses and boom, hard hits?
And then it happens. Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, we would look at, you know, where they are, because again, we look at fixed structures, you know, for repair or such like that. If they were in the process of building it, then the only thing that we will be able to consider is their materials, because it wasn't a finished structure.
Yes.
So how would we determine the value of that structure if it's incomplete? Because we would have to send verifiers, construction engineers basically out there to value whatever it is, that so that we can determine how much money we need to provide you to replace this structure. So if it's an incomplete structure, we're going to be limited in terms of the amount of funds that we can provide you. And it's basically going to be those materials that you've already purchased and have receipts for that you can show us that you were going to use to build this structure. So your loan would be limited to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
absolutely. Seeing that so many people have been affected by the hurricanes, I just want to talk a little bit about time frame, because from the time of submission, when they submit all the necessary documents to that individual, that loan officer who they're submitting documents to. What are we looking at as far as a turnaround time? What would you say?
You know, it varies somewhat depending on the level of activity that we're involved in at the time. Just like now, because we got, you know, Harvey over in Texas, we got Irma, we got Maria, so we have a whole lot of activity going on right now. So generally, it would probably take up to about 4 weeks.
Okay.
You know, to get to the point where we're ready to close on that.
Okay.
That sort of thing like that. Usually when there's not this much activity going on at one time, it's a lot less than that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
but it's a lot less than that. Because what we have now, unlike what we had during the time when you and I came on board, we have one processing center. We used to process in 4 different centers.
Okay.
But we have like over 180 square foot of facility now that we do all of the processing. All of our processing is done in Fort Worth, Texas, at our processing center. So, and we have a huge operating staff at that facility that they do all of the processing. So we're able to now, you know, turn things around fairly quickly.
Yes, because when I was here, we do everything at one Baltimore place there.
Everything
like,
for this particular area.
Yeah,
we had 4 area offices. This was considered area 2, so all of the processing, all of the loans and lending, everything was done.
The closings.
Everything was done independently at each one of those centers.
Yeah, we had a whole floor of nothing but attorneys, about
Absolutely.
200 of them. It was mad. It was mad.
And then on the other floor, you had about 200 or maybe 300 loan officers.
Loan officers.
Just doing the underwriting and that sort of thing.
Wow.
And then in another section, you had all of these verifiers. These are the individuals who goes out in the field and verify the damage and that sort of thing. And you had loan closers, essentially. So we had the entire operation in one general area, and we were in, like I said, 4 offices. Well, we've consolidated all of that into one huge facility
in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas.
Is that close to the Treasury Department? Is the Treasury Department in Kansas? Where is it now?
Oh, you talking about the primary one?
Yeah.
It's in Kansas.
Kansas.
Kansas. Okay.
Close to where the money is, okay?
Right, close to where the money is.
They got one in Kansas and they got, another where they keep all the gold in
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's the one I'd like to be.
I'll put me close to that one.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Michael, what would we be looking at as far as interest rate and term?
Right now, the interest rate is less than 2% for a homeowner, and it's 3% for a business owner.
Okay, and would that be a 15-year amortization, 30-year amortization?
We actually can do it up to 30 years.
Up to 30.
Really?
Up to 30 years, yeah. So we really, what determines that amortization period is based on the amount of the loan and what they are accustomed to paying, in terms of their short-term loans or their long-term loans and such like that. We always want to try to fit the terms and the payment to be commensurate with what they're accustomed to paying. We don't want to give them an accelerated or high payment that they're not accustomed to paying. And then we look at their debt levels and some of their schedule of liabilities and different things like that so that we can fit it in there. We always want, because we know they're getting this loan as a result of a disaster.
As a disaster.
Right.
And-
So we always keep that in the forefront when we're making these decisions. So if we can make ours, if they're accustomed to paying most of those long and short-term debts at $400, $350 level, or $700 level, we'll try to fit ours like $270, $280 or something like that, to the extent that we can, and based on the amount of the loan. as such.
Gotcha.
And I just have another question about, okay, being that we're talking about interest rates and, and the mortgages, so will the SBA be taking a second position, or is there a
We will.
lien? Okay,
Yeah, we will take a second position
okay.
if there's one already there, and so we won't allow that initial lien to preclude us from giving you that loan,
Okay.
giving you the
That is
necessary
good.
capital that you need. Yeah.
That is
So
good.
we will take a second position, in some cases even a third.
Okay.
Really?
Wow. Now I
Because
also-
again,
Mhm.
this is a result of a disaster.
Of a
So we
disaster.
want to keep that in mind.
Right.
So I saw that after 5 days of signing the closing documents, there's an initial disbursement, right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
Right, and for these, I just want to point out for what we do on a routine basis, usually after we close on the loans, we give them a deferment of 5 months before they have to make the initial payment.
That's good to know.
But as a result of the amount of damage that we've had as a result of these 3 major hurricanes, we're extending that up to 12, in some cases for businesses, sometimes 18
That is
months
good.
before they have to make that initial payment. Because we recognize that they still got a lot of things that they kind of do on a personal level to kind of get their business up and operating. So we don't want to be a burden on them for at least that first 12 months so that they can start making that payment. Because if it's a business and like I said, we have a cap for just general business at $2 million. However, if they're a major source of employment in that particular community, then there's no cap. We'll do whatever we can to get that business back up and going because they're vital to that particular community as well as the economy.
That's right.
So if we have to go beyond, $2 million, we'll do that.
That
in order
is-
to get
that is
that particular
awesome.
business up.
So like if
fantastic.
it was like a factory or, in
Absolutely.
a rural area or something.
Absolutely.
Right,
Okay.
that's fantastic, that's fantastic. So the deadline, when it comes to applying, because from my understanding, from the time of that it was
From the
declared
time
a
of
disaster.
From the
then
time it was declared, yeah, it's usually 60 months, 60 days.
60 days.
60 days initially, but depending on the level of activity, the level of damage, that time can be extended.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent,
So
excellent.
now for the physical aspect of it, it's 60 days. For the economic injury or financial impact of it, it's usually 9 months. Because it takes a business longer to determine what their losses are, especially if they're financial losses, than it is just to look at the building and say, okay, that wall is cracked, I need to get some more drywall over here. Those things that are sight unseen, which is your financial losses, we recognize it's going to take a little longer for you to be able to turn that. You may even need 1 or 2 business cycles in order to
Yes.
determine
That was
what
my next
those
question.
losses
Yes.
are going to be.
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
what we
to
say.
have something to measure up against.
Absolutely.
Yes, with,
So at the end of the fourth quarter,
yes.
someone might call you and say, you know what, last quarter, as you look at my numbers,
For
last
last
year
year.
dropped
Mhm.
dramatically because of the
Because
disaster.
I may have been a part of the disaster too. I may be one of your major suppliers, and I
Yes.
was affected by the disaster. So those orders that I had preset with you,
Right,
I can't do those anymore. So as a result of it, that's going to be a loss for you.
absolutely.
That you may not have known until after the supplier went through a couple of cycles.
Right.
So now your losses is gonna be greater than you initially thought.
Absolutely.
So we wanna make certain that they got enough time, even though we encourage them to apply early on, because we can always adjust and go back, and once we've given you that loan, if you come back to us and say, hey, here are some mitigating circumstances that I wasn't aware when I initially applied and got this loan, I'm gonna need 50,000 more.
That's good to
If
know.
you can show cause and show us where that occurred and that sort of thing there, then we will go and we'll give you that time and we'll increase that loan.
Oh, that's good.
Awesome information.
That is awesome,
Yeah.
because they can have just regular natural disasters for us on the actual property structure.
Right.
And then come first quarter 2018,
Yeah.
you say, by the way, Michael, fourth quarter was horrible.
Was horrible.
for us because so we need an extra 7,000.
Yeah, but the key thing to that is that they have to be able to show us that that loss is as a result
Yes.
of that disaster.
Yeah.
It can't be as a result of something else that
Yes.
happened.
Right.
It's gotta be tied to that disaster, and they have to be able to show that to us.
Absolutely.
Once that's done, then we don't have any problem. We'll still look at some additional current financial statements to see whether, there's been no dramatic adverse change in your financial, situation and that sort of thing. So we'll look at current, financial documents again. But, if nothing really has changed, then we don't have any problem increasing the loan.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Well, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I actually do. I actually do. Okay, so, and we're talking about applying for the loan. So if a business, because, we primarily help businesses, but we still want to get information out for individuals as well.
Sure.
Now, we know that there's is there a minimum credit score involved for individuals or businesses?
Not really. I mean, it really depends on what's on the credit
What's
report.
on, yeah.
What's on that report. If there are some things like, you're delinquent with child support, if you had a student loan or a government loan or some sort that you hadn't paid or hadn't shown that you were trying to pay, those are gonna work probably against you.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you have, like general, some slow pays and different things like that, or, you had you're a big reader and you went out and bought a bunch of magazines and you missed some magazine subscription and you said, I didn't pay them or something like that.
Medical bills?
Some medical bills, we'll take all of that into consideration
Okay.
because if, somebody in the household may have lost their job or something like that. So some of the medical bills have got behind. But if we can see where you're doing all that's necessary in order to get that caught up or repay that, then, we'll consider that as well.
And another question, if, say for instance, and I'm talking about in terms of businesses, so if a business applied and their financials were sloppy and they didn't have, and they're like, and then they got turned down, right?
Right.
And then they're like, hold up, my accountant can fix this. Can they reapply?
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone that we turn down for whatever reason, we give them up to 6 months
Okay.
to make the corrections.
Okay.
And if they can do the correction, because we're going to tell them precisely in a letter what is necessary to be done in order for them to come back to us. And we give them a 6-month period to do that.
Okay.
Once they do that, if it takes them 2 weeks, fine. Come back in, show us the things, and we tell them specifically what they need to provide us.
Okay.
So once you're coming back and you show us and you've virtually fixed or put in a plan to fix those things that we saw that we couldn't overcome by, just looking at it and giving you that loan, then we'll work with you. We've had many people that have come back in on reconsiderations and such like that.
Oh, it's
and
called
have gotten the loan.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
We have a 3-pronged process. They apply, and if they're denied, then they got 6 months to get a reconsideration on our decision. If, for whatever reason, if we can't show cause and we can approve it at that point, then there's one other level. We'll tell them what we couldn't do in order to approve it. Then they got another 30 days to remedy that, and when it comes back in, it'll be reviewed by someone else at a higher level.
So if they get it done the right way the right way,
The
first time, how long does this take?
That's good to go. Again, it goes back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
We usually get through all of the paperwork in the process up to four
weeks.
weeks
Okay.
right now.
All right.
And then,
that's the perfect world, right?
That's the perfect world. That's the perfect world.
Right, that's the perfect.
That's the perfect world. Yeah, exactly.
And so basically, what are the main reasons that businesses and individuals are turned down?
Generally, credit and repayment ability.
Or repayment ability?
Repayment ability, yeah. They, for whatever reason, don't show that they have the ability to repay the loan based on their history,
All right.
that sort of thing.
And I have one more question. And, you know, because I try to cover all bases, I'm like, since we got you here, and I'm
Absolutely.
very happy, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for taking
Sure.
out the time in a busy schedule.
Absolutely.
Having worked here from the SBA many, many years ago, disaster assistance, I know that it's like hectic right now. So thank you so much.
Sure.
So what about agriculture? Like if someone had a crop that was totally destroyed, who handles that?
We do have, what we call Secretary of Ag loans.
Oh,
as
okay.
such, that we provide to businesses that are in the agricultural industry.
Okay.
Not necessarily the person who's actually growing the corn or growing the crop.
Mhm.
They're assisted by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
They have their own loan program as
Mhm.
such. But because there are businesses in those ag communities
Mhm.
that rely on those particular entities in order for their survival. Say for instance, you're in, I'll just use Iowa as an example where they got corn all over the place and that sort of thing there. Well, all those businesses in those markets there rely on those agricultural businesses or those concerns
Right.
to buy products from them, and that's part of their survival.
Mhm.
So when something happens to that corn crop,
Mhm.
and they can't necessarily produce it to the level that they're accustomed to doing it in order to get the income stream that they're accustomed to, then they don't necessarily have the money or the funds that they can go out to the local restaurant or to the John Deere store or to the repair shop, equipment repair shop. They can't spend the money because they didn't make the crop.
Yeah.
So these businesses suffer. So SBA steps in now. The declaration is borne by USDA.
Right.
But whenever they set out that declaration, they pass on that information directly to us, and we go consistently with them. We will declare those same areas for business purposes, so that USDA is going to help the farmer and the rancher in those areas, and SBA is going to step in and help those businesses that are also in those particular communities, because they're going to probably have financial losses as well. They're going to have loss of revenue because, these big business entities that are farmers, they're not spending the money anymore because they don't have it.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
So we provide what we call an economic injury loan for those businesses in those areas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's all the questions that I had. Did you have any more questions?
No more questions. I think within the conversation, one more. Okay, for the renters and leases, the SBA guidelines so that they can qualify for up to $40,000, right?
$40,000 for personal property.
Personal property.
Right.
Okay.
The homeowner can qualify up to $200,000
Okay.
for physical losses, and then if they have a sub business or something like that, then it falls into the business category,
Okay.
up to $2 million.
And so, how is that secured? How is that?
Well, we generally, if you don't have collateral, we won't turn you down for lack of collateral.
Okay.
But if you do have collateral, we will look at, the home as collateral if you're getting repairs done to the home over and above, the first $50,000.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Sounds good. Well, Michael, we would like to thank you for taking the time out
Well,
to speak with us today as far as the information.
Absolutely.
Very informative, very
Absolutely.
educational.
Yeah.
Because we know you guys are extremely busy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I always have time in order to get, if there's always a medium by which I can get that information out to the public, I'm always willing to make an effort to give that time, because that's our primary goal, to make certain that people out in the general public know that we are here and know that we're here to help, and that there are monies available to help them. And we want to make sure that they have knowledge of that information, that they can go out and take advantage of it. The worst thing that could possibly happen in a disaster is that a disaster victim doesn't know where to go
Exactly.
to get help.
You're exactly right.
And that's what we've always wanted to make certain that we do, is to provide, get the information out there so that they know that there is help available for them.
And I just want to stress to anyone that's out there that's listening, I used to work with Mr. Michael Lampton many, many years ago handling the Hurricane Katrina. And just to let you know, the government does care about you. During Katrina, we had a lot of people that said that, the government doesn't care about us. It's not true. I personally, work 14 up to 80 hours a week. They are working feverishly. They really care. And they're just trying to get this out to you. I mean, they hire people on a consistent basis during a disaster, and they are working around the clock to assist you. So just to let you know, hold on in there, hang on in there, help is on the way.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Michael. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
everything.
Absolutely. Good.
And we're out. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us, and welcome back. Welcome back. As you just saw, the second half of us meeting with Michael Lampton of the SBA Disaster Assistance Program. And as you already know, we had to break this up into two halves. So as you saw the second half, it was so much information and the education component. And the way Michael broke everything down was just phenomenal. You know?
Yes.
I mean, that was absolutely phenomenal.
Phenomenal. I mean, he should have a PhD in disaster assistance. And I just want to thank Michael, you know, on camera once again.
Thank you, Michael.
For, I mean, his astronomical information, his openness and willingness to assist, and his passion about disaster assistance, and to allow Barthelemy Commercial Capital to come in the offices, in the high security government offices of the SBA Disaster Assistance, and I couldn't have gotten there probably without me being who I am, who was a former employee. And you know, I thank him for his accommodating us, and also we had a chance to meet with the director of the entire Small Business Administration Disaster Assistance Field Office East, Frank Skaggs.
Absolutely.
We got to meet with Bob Alexander, who was another manager there, and also we met with Sue Red, who was a good friend of mine, and former coworker, and they are, when I tell you they've been there 27 plus years.
At least 20-some plus years, and it was such a delight and such a joy to see their passion for what they do, and that's what really stood out amongst other things as far as the information and how they educated us on these programs as far as the disaster assistance program. And they are so passionate. These people work 12, 14 hours a day,
80 hours a week. Yeah, I mean, during a crisis, during like a new crisis such as this one, they work overtime. When I was there, we used to work so hard, and they hardly take lunch breaks, and they work like 7 days a week. So just to let you know, they are passionate. It's like a life work, and just to let you know, these people care. The government does care about you.
They do, and a lot of people, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Mikhail, because when people think of SBA, they say, well, they do loans, they do this, and we want to get the word out there because we want to help. Okay, a lot of people, when they think of SBA, Small Business Administration, they say, well, okay, they just do loans, and no one really knows about that as far as the disaster assistance program. So it's new to so many individuals, and this is the main reason why we're bringing this to you, because we want to help as Barthelemy Commercial Capital as well.
Exactly, because when I used to work for the SBA, I didn't know, when I was hired, I didn't know that they had a disaster assistance program. I mean, I've applied for SBA loans in my teens when I was trying to start my own business. But yes, it's a very, unless you have ever been affected by a disaster, you wouldn't know that there is a branch of the SBA that actually helps not only businesses but individuals.
Absolutely.
With disaster recovery loans.
Absolutely. This is very true, and as many of you already know, Barthelemy Commercial Capital, we have, of course, our experience and our team's experience is, of course, in the SBA field with the 504 and 7A loans. However, the key thing here is where we come into play, and this is very important in our role as far as this disaster assistance program, is to give you, the viewers, and those that are in dire need, and those that are that need this program, so that you have a better chance, not only a better chance, but a good chance at receiving this assistance.
Yes.
This is where we come into play. Now, our relationships, okay, and just to give you a little quick background here, as far as the SBA 504 and 7A loans, our relationships are directly with the banks. However,
Yeah.
This program, now this is very important, is coming directly from the U.S. Treasury.
Yes, so the Small Business Administration, a lot of people really don't know, is actually a bank. It's the Bank of the United States. I mean, it lends within the agencies of the United States. The Small Business Administration, for a disaster assistance, this is what I love so much about it. They don't go through third-party banks to help the people directly, because they try to eliminate as much red tape to get the assistance straight to the people. So with that being said, you know, there's loan packaging services such as ourselves that we help us to package the loans in place, not saying in place of the banks, but acting as like a liaison between the client and the SBA. Now, it is not required, but it makes things a whole lot easier for the client, you know, people who are not well versed in documentations and loan, because it's still a loan, okay? It's assistance for a special circumstance.
Absolutely.
That you wouldn't have gotten any other way.
Absolutely.
But it is still a loan. And basically, that's how, you know, the loans are, funding is straight through the U.S.
Right, the US
Department of Treasury. So so the checks, like if you were to ever apply for a disaster assistance recovery loan, whether that be physical or economic injury, your check will be coming straight from the U.S. Department of Treasury.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is another reason why that turnaround rate is so quick. That turnaround rate could be as soon as 4 weeks. As a matter of fact, that's the average turnaround rate versus your normal SBA 504-7A, you could be 60 to 90 days out. However, the government wants to help, and this is very important. Okay, I'll point this out. This is why they're working around the clock. Now, this is where Barthelemy Commercial Capital comes into play, and to assist and to act as that bridge, okay, and to make sure. Now, let me just throw this out there to you, okay? Statistically, 50%, okay? 50% of loans that are submitted are declined.
For any loan, that would be from, you know, any loan that could be through a bank or anywhere, because this is what we do all day long. Most loans, well, I would say half of the loans that are submitted are turned down, and that's with disaster assistance. That is with anyone. And the only reason for that is because of improper paperwork, and a lot of times it's lack of credit.
It is lack of credit. You're exactly right. And what happens is that if there's a document out of place, or if it's not presentable, because the bottom line is that, especially for this program, I want you to keep this in mind, okay? You have loan officers for this particular program, okay, the SBA, that have thousands of files. So if there's one missing document, okay, there's a good chance that your file is going to go underneath the pile, and then when they get back to it, or this could also happen, it could be declined. Now, you can reapply, don't get me wrong, but now you're pushing back. Instead of closing in 4 weeks, now you have to reapply. Okay, so now you're talking 60, 90 days, maybe even 120. Well, if it's put under, I mean, if they have to reapply, so that means they have to reapply, they have to come back.
I see what you're saying. So if they're cycling around and around and around.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're exactly right. And that cycle could be up to 120 days if it's if it's approved.
Yes.
Now keep in mind, you got declined the first time. So what we come into play is that Barthelemy Commercial Capital wants to give you not only a better chance, but an excellent chance at obtaining it the first go round. And that's where our expertise comes in at, as far as packaging that particular loan properly, making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's.
Exactly. And just to let you guys know that we are not an agent of the SBA or an affiliate. We just have very good relationship with the SBA to be able to contact them, ask them questions, you know, anything that we need for our clients, anyone who are to hire Barthelemy Commercial Capital as a loan packaging agent, that we have that relationship with the SBA. We're not an affiliate of the SBA. So just to make that clear.
Right. Exactly. And seeing that our relationship goes almost 15 years with the SBA, okay, because we we've been in business close to 15 years, and that's been our relationships with banks throughout the entire country. Okay, and packaging and seeing that our closing ratio, okay, on that side of the 504 and 7A SBA, our closing ratios are at 95%. So our experience and our team's experience is, I mean, it's priceless. But our main goal here, okay, our main goal here is to help our viewers. Is to help those that were affected, those families that were affected, those businesses that were affected from these natural disasters.
Exactly. So yes, our primary business here is to help the businesses, which in turn helps the families. Because as we saw in Puerto Rico, the entire infrastructure of Puerto Rico, due to they had 2 hurricanes back to back, Maria and Irma, and then Maria came and did devastating things there. And I mean, there's pallets and pallets of food and supplies that were sent, but they could not get to the people because the infrastructure was so torn apart. But at the same time, the businesses, the businesses are part of the infrastructure, because people, they get their supplies from grocery stores and other stores, retail outlets, and those businesses need disaster assistance from the SBA as well. And just like Michael said, insurance may not be enough a lot of times. FEMA, would basically direct businesses to the SBA
Absolutely.
for disaster assistance. But the families depend on these businesses not only for supplies and services, but actually for their employment.
They do. It's had an effect, as everyone out there knows, viewers know, Mikhail. It's had an effect on not only the families, but the businesses, those that are in the surrounding areas. As you already know, the entire state of Florida has been affected. The entire state of Texas has been affected. Puerto Rico, you mentioned earlier.
Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands.
Right, U.S. Virgin Islands. So, the bottom line is, Barthelemy Commercial Capital is here to help. To do our part and to help those that are in need.
So if you've been affected in any federal disaster declared zone or area, it can be a forest fire. It doesn't have to be a major catastrophe, because there's a lot of federal declared disaster areas it's not on the news. It's not publicized. It has to be huge and publicized to be on the news. It could be a drought. It can be something that that is affected you, but it has to be federally declared by the Trump administration that it is a federal disaster declared zone, and of course your governor would have to declare it first, and then that's when the federal government comes in and makes the SBA loans available.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be Maria, or it could be anything as long as it's a federal disaster. And that's when, don't wait, because guess what, there are deadlines to apply, because I think the deadlines are 60 days after the declaration. So we have 60 days to apply within that time frame.
That's a very good point, Mikhail, because the clock is ticking.
Yes.
Needless to say, the clock is ticking. And I want everyone to keep in mind, you can always go to bccfinance.com. We have a lot of information on that website. I mean, a lot of information. And to expedite things, there's forms that you can complete on the actual website to expedite things. And I want you to keep this in mind, for all of our viewers, that once again, we're here to help. And our response time, okay, we're going to give you 150%. So from the time that you contact us to that inquiry that's online, that completed form, and we receive that, we're getting right back to you, because as Mikhail said just a minute ago, the clock is ticking.
Yes, it's
the deadline it's ticking. So each day we're lack of a better term, falling behind an 8 ball. So we have to act immediately.
Exactly, I totally agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good. So, Mikhail, did you have anything else that you want to add?
No, I just want to stress that, you know, help is there, help is here. And we're here at Barthelemy Commercial Capital, and our fees are low for loan packaging, is way beneath the SBA guidelines, but because it's part of us giving back to our success. We've been very successful. This country has been very, very good to us, and we wanted that is partially one of our ways to give back. And also, we just want to let the churches and you know, religious organizations know that, and even some nonprofits, that we will be packaging your loans for nothing. So let us know how we can help.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that point up. So with that being said, we would like to thank all of our viewers once again for joining us. We hope and pray that this information was very informative and very educational for all those that are watching. Once again, as I stated before, you can always go to bccfinance.com. That website is extremely user-friendly. You can always give us a call at 404-860-1770. And as we stated before, we're here for you. We're here to help. We're here to give you 150%, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Amen.
Absolutely. So with that being said, thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.